Anyway, last night, Lubbock City Council meeting. It was a pretty quick mover.
Yeah, we may have set the record because it was so short.
How short was it?
16 minutes.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's barely time. Did anybody have to get up and go to the bathroom during that time?
No.
Any recusals during that time?
No.
Okay.
No pulls during that time.
All right. This is interesting. And I don't see how the balls would actually pay for the driving range. And I get this. This is supposed to be, kind of one of those things people are just going to go out there in West Lubbock and sit there and go, that's amazing. The driving range.
A multi-story driving range.
Yeah, it's a multi-story driving range that's proposed right out in McAllister Park.
That's my understanding, yes.
And then, in addition to the driving range, there's supposed to be a restaurant and bar.
Correct.
Now, rumor has it that the restaurant and bar is sharing the parking lot with Western Little League, and we were speculating the other day that, people that got ejected, like rowdy fans and stuff, mouthy dads, wayward coaches, that got ejected from the game could go over and, cool down at the driving range. Your problem with this is, I think personally, you don't think that the restaurant/bar should be that close to the Little League fields, yes or no?
That's correct. And not only is it the Western Little League, it also has a challenger field there, which is for the special needs community. And Legacy Village is not that far from it either. So it's all
That's true.
They'd all be sharing out in that area. And I know the general, it would be easy to assume, well, Jim's a preacher, so he's going to automatically be opposed to alcohol. No, that's not the issue.
He's a straight era. I don't drink either, man. So
yeah. Well, if someone else wants to, that's up to them. That's
right,
fine.
I get it.
And I know that there are restaurants up and down Milwaukee that serve alcohol. I understand that, but they don't share the parking lot. I also know Western Little League Board of Directors sent a letter saying they're in support of that. Well, that's fine. But if we approve this and a child gets run over, guess who gets the blame for it? It's not the Western Little League who sent a letter and said we're in support of this. No, it's the stupid council who allowed a range to come in there selling liquor next to a Little League. That's my concern. Mm-hmm. But I also have concern, is that the best use of public parks? Is that the best use of public land? Mm-hmm. And then also, if this is such a good thing, if it's such a good economic investment, why use public land for that? Why not go private land and develop?
Okay, I get it. Well, the whole thing is relatively speaking, in that part of the city, okay, like people are selling third of an acre for $2 million. Okay, so when Glenn, Mayor Glenn Robertson says, hey, I think we can get more money out of this deal if and we were going to do this. Right. I mean, I think he's right on. I mean, you can get more money from it. And I think, what is it, like $100,000 a year or something?
$100,000 a year, we're increasing 1% a year after 5, I think it is. But again, and they had an appraisal done, because part of it will be in the floodplain, so that will have some restrictions on the value of the land. But again, you come back into where that land is located, and it's pretty high dollar land.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Now, who is the company that's actually wanting to do this?
That's a group of investors. I think it's Hub City Golf, and I don't know the list of all the investors involved in it.
So local people.
Local people.
Okay,
apparently.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is one thing. When I had not too long ago saw some property, and I was like wondering who owned the property. And it's very easy to find out. You can, dial LCAD 762-5000 and say, hey, talk to mapping if you don't have an address and say, I'm on the corner of this street and this street, southwest corner.
Sure.
Who owns it? Oh, let me see, and they'll give you an R number. And then when I inquired about, okay, well, what would it take to purchase land that is owned by the city? Fact, that actually happened. Then, the response that I got from a particular council member when I had this conversation, not you, but another council person, and I said, well, what goes into that stuff? And they said, well, I think because the city owns the property, what has to happen is we have to put it out for bid.
That's my understanding, too.
Okay, so the thing is how can you have, if you're going to do this, how can we, hone in it? If that's the case, then why are we not jumping the gun, kind of going with this deal? And I'm just being devil's advocate. I'm not trying to rain on a group of investors' parade or anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not something the city's asking to do.
No, I get it. But,
in terms of putting it out to bid, so.
But what I'm saying is if you're going to dedicate city property, or if you're going to sell city property, or you're going to commit city property, of course now here begs the question. There, you have 1 foot in a canoe and one foot in another canoe. And when we gave away, the land warehouse or use of and all the proceeds, after we spend, decades of thousands of dollars on the refurbishment of the land warehouse, and then we give it to Fiesta Celiano and say, here, you guys run it and do whatever. And you can keep all the cash. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's up with that? I mean, you see what I'm saying, the argument there?
Sure. Well, land warehouse, excuse me. Land warehouse, of course, still belongs to the city. Mm-hmm. They're leasing it for a while. They gave back the old fire station, so there's some return back to the city for what they did on the property you're talking about. Now, you're right, but you talk about selling or committing, whatever it is. This is a lease. It's not a sale.
It's a 20-year lease,
It's
right?
a 20-year lease, and that also concerns me a little bit, tying up city park land for 20 years. And then they're asking for 5-year renewals after that, potentially 5-year renewals, for 25 5-year renewals following that. But who knows what that area is going to be like in 20 years. Mm-hmm. Are we going to need more parkland? There's not any more land being created. Mm-hmm. So I just have some reservations. I don't know how it will go when we bring it up for vote in 2 weeks. With 2 council members being gone last night, I felt like I supported the motion to postpone it because I felt like it needed to be something that all council members weighed in
2
on.
members not available would be Victor Hernandez, Floyd Price. The other concern that I kind of have is okay, let's say you have a cemetery, and what cemeteries are, and this isn't really random, I think it's related. If you have a cemetery, cemeteries are regulated from the standpoint of you have to prove that you have the financial wherewithal to maintain it even after a point where everything is sold and filled up, for forever. Okay, now let's just say you sign a 20-year lease. They put this structure up, this driving range.
Right.
And let's say that they, crash and burn and it doesn't make it.
Right.
Okay, now, it's going to, look what we got with, the Omni building. It's going to take us, now it's not going to take, X million dollars to tear it down, but it ain't going to be cheap. So, do you think the city would require some sort of personal guarantee from the group of investors? Hey, man, you know what? You owe us, basically what you owe us is $2 million long term, minimum.
And I think that's a valid concern. And of course, the way the ordinance or the way the resolution was written, it would be to give the city manager authority to negotiate a contract. So there's still some things to be done. I think the contract as being presented right now is probably not one that would be the final contract. I think there'd have to be a lot of changes made in it. But it just opens, in my mind, a can of worms.
Speaking of city manager, James Loomis, was looking at retirement. Well, maybe put a finger on the pulse of the search for a new city manager and some recent decisions about the LPD that Have some people thinking. 7:25, Tom and Sandra were in conversation with Jim Gerlt after city council meeting. It was a shorty, 16 minutes long.
It's got to be a record, maybe.
Now, did you guys? I'm sorry. I normally would watch this on Channel 2, but since it was moved up to 5:15 start, I just kind of like, I can't get there.
Sure.
Oftentimes. So, was this one of those things? Did you still have people making presentations and remarks up front, or was it just let's get right down to business and get in and get out?
No one signed up early for citizens' comments, and then we had two show up at the event to sign up to speak, but they were both to speak about the driving range, and they said we're here to answer any questions. Well, we didn't talk about it, so we had no citizens' comments. That really made it a whole lot shorter. We didn't have any special recognitions last night. We had the Red Hat Society on there for recognition, but some kind of communication breakdown took place, and none of them showed up. So we didn't have citizens' comments. We didn't have any special recognitions. We had a short agenda. There were no pulls on the consent agenda, so they passed with one motion. And then we pulled a couple of things. The driving range, we pulled that, and then voting on the interim police chief, we pulled that because we didn't have full council. We had a few zoning changes, a few annexes. Most of the zonings were second reading. They'd already been approved the first time, so there wasn't a lot of debate on those. There were two annexation requests that we normally would have postponed because we didn't have a full council, but according to state statute, we had to deal with them last night.
You didn't have
for
time
timing.
to delay them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here in a minute, after bottom of the hour news, we'll come back and we'll talk about the interim police chief and kind of like the movement around there, like demotions and movement from here to there. James Loomis, city manager, let's get an update on that because he's the one that actually made that decision. And I have some questions about that. A lot of people do. They're just curious. But as far as the update on the search for a new city manager, how long is Loomis still going to be here? Are we sticking with the original plan? Is he going to, what's the deal? How long is he going to be here?
He'll be here through 2016.
Because?
Well, he set his retirement date of January 2nd of 2017. He's doing a good job. We'd like to keep him longer than that, but we did talk him to stay through 2016. We will start the search after the next election because there are 4 council members, well, the mayor and 3 council members that are up for election in May. And we felt like it would be very difficult to bring in a new city manager, get someone interested in coming, knowing that there might be a whole new council, or basically a new quorum on the council.
Right. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Jim Gerlt will be back after the news. Sandra Ziegler, Tom Collins, and we've got Jim Gerlt in the house. He's, what's your number? Are you number 4? Number 4. Also Mayor Pro Tem. All right, city council meeting last night. Budget was presented by city manager. Basically what we're looking at, anticipating 1.67 cents on property tax rate, which would raise property taxes in the city, 53.91 cents per 100. What that means to you, your house is worth $200,000? Or appraises for $200,000, not by an appraiser, but by Lubbock, LCAD, Lubbock Central Appraisal District. Your taxes per annum would go up $107.83. Okay? Or $100,000, $53.91. Okay, when's this? What's the timeline on this, man?
We have to have a budget approved by the end of September.
Okay.
That's our drop dead date. So we've got scheduled in here. We've got more workshops coming up. We'll actually sit. When we got to council yesterday at 1:30, our books were waiting for us, and they're 2 massive books. They're over 700 pages of the budget. It's broken down into the general fund and then into the capital fund.
Well, this is one thing that, you're going to hold public works sessions, probably 2, maybe more. You're going to advise staff to explore changes and also have public hearings. Now, as far as the public hearings go, I mean, it's, you're doomed to torches and pitchforks. That's no doubt. When it comes to property taxes, I mean, you're going to get a good showing. But, the other stuff kind of sounds, it kind of sounds like a meeting to have a meeting, to set a meeting.
Well, no, it's really more than that. When we start diving into this and trying to figure out things, we need to have an opportunity to get explanation. And the thing you run into is if you just do one briefing at a time with different council members, then it wears the staff out, and different things may come up along the way that needs to go back and explain to them. So it's a matter of sitting down, and then all 7 of us can hear at the same time some of the explanation of what's going on. And someone may have a question, well, why can't we do that? And someone else say, well, yeah, I like that idea. Let's go here. So it's not just a meeting to have a meeting. It's a meeting to actually look at this and see
It's
where can
more
we make
than
some
a
changes.
meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, now
Not that the city government would never have a meeting, just have a meeting, but
well, I was kind of referring to having a meeting to set a meeting. A lot of times that's been my experience with PTA. Okay, so relatively speaking, in this budget, with your financial crystal ball that you carry around in your back pocket, is this are there major issues in the budget, or does it look pretty admissible?
well, again, I picked it up last night for the first time. In the overview, a part of it is servicing our debt. I think it's 58% of the budget is public safety. We're talking about fire and police, and that's one of the biggest responsibilities that the city has is to provide public safety. So that's a big part of the budget that drives it. And of course, the unaffordable Health Care Act is driving up some of our insurance costs like crazy.
Really?
So we've got a lot of things, a lot of federal mandates that come into play that we have to deal with also. So when I didn't bring it with me, but when you start breaking it down, there's just a small percentage of it that goes to administrative costs. Most of it is for hard services.
Right. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Jim Gerlt, Councilman Place 4. Hope day's going well for you. In conversation with Councilman Jim Gerlt after a city council meeting. Okay. Relative the actions in the LPD, you guys postponed the vote on, or the confirmation of interim police chief Brewer. Now, what you had Ellis was demoted to captain. Then you had Shavers was moved from investigations to patrol. And, the reason that was given for all this with the city manager was civil service law. Now, the thing is, according to civil service law, and I don't know what all the parameters are on this. I'm kind of interested to know the ins and outs of it. But basically, the police chief and the administration and police force apparently serve at the pleasure of the city manager. Now, the city manager cannot terminate, but the city manager can reassign or move people or put people in certain positions.
Correct.
Once those positions are filled or people are, moved to, I don't think, let's say, you move Ellis to captain and Shavers from here to there. That's not something that has to be approved, but as far as an appointment, does have to be confirmed by the city council.
It's affirmed, yes. The city manager still does the hiring. He does the appointing, and then it's for basically approval, confirmation.
Okay, now, relatively speaking, there were, a lot of people were kind of speculating, still are speculating, because there's, in a news story that I read, no details, but it was said that the next police chief will probably be someone from outside the department because of some ongoings that had been happening in the department. Can you be specific about anything like that?
Our city manager, I think, will do a nationwide search. He wants to come up with the best qualified candidate. If that's internally, then that'll be the case. If it's externally, that'll be the case. But he's looking for the best person to bring in here and lead our police department.
A lot of people were thinking there were a lot of things that were happening. And there are some things that really didn't add up to me. Like, for instance, this crime line award of $10,000 to the guy who was a person of interest in this Mark Isasaga case. And I get the fact that they award the guy the $10,000, $2,500, which was put up by the Isasaga family. But it was kind of weird to me that you would actually make this crime line award 3 days prior to the physical, scientific identification of the body.
Yeah.
So
you think it has something to do with that whole thing?
And then there's also speculation about, the DOJ thing, which says that we're discriminatory to women and Hispanics.
Which makes me furious.
In the testing practices. But here's the interesting thing. The thing is, a lot of people sit there and say, well, they're discriminating. Well, here's the thing. These are usually assessment tools, it's my understanding, that are purchased third party, and there are other cities, around the state and the nation that use the same assessment tools that we do. True that?
True that.
You're talking about the hiring practices of the police department and the physical and the written exam that are used.
The testing regimen and the physical exam. It's on the website. What's discriminatory about that? It says this is what we're looking for. These are our job qualifications. They're posted on there. And I actually know a guy, or of a guy that I actually met and saw that, hey, he didn't make it through the physical part because he injured his shoulder during it is rigorous.
Yeah, and it should be to protect the lives of the other officers and to protect the public. I mean, we need the best trained, smartest police officers we can get, right? And so, police departments around the country have been sued by the Department of Justice for supposedly discriminatory practices just because they don't like the outcomes of the test. That's what we're dealing with.
So, okay. Councilman Gerlt, so are we transcending outcome-based education into the testing and the hiring practices of the LPD?
Tom?
Or is that what the federal government wants?
Because we are under the threat, the promise of litigation by the DOJ.
It's imminent.
It is imminent. I have to be very careful what I say.
He can't say anything.
The reality is...
Shh, they're probably listening right
now. The reality is, I want to go ballistic, but I can't. I cannot talk about that.
Yeah.
I would like to know why you're furious about the discrimination.
Flip it out, girl.
Well, I mean, it's just, it does go to just the lunacy of assuming that because the numbers come out a certain way that there's discrimination involved. I mean, I as a woman can sit here and say without any problem that I would imagine that it's going to be easier for the average man to pass that test than the average woman. And I'm good with that. Do I want a strong, smart police officer responding to a call at my house? Absolutely. Okay? If there are women that can pass that test, great. But I don't think that it's discrimination if fewer women pass the test than men. I want the best trained, best prepared police officers on our police force. That's what protects our community.
Now, I heard a story, and I don't think this was the local story, and it may or may not have been, but I forget where somebody was telling me about this, that there was an application for a police academy, and there was a woman that actually had a gun tattooed on the side of her face and was refused, refused application. I get that. Mm-hmm. But are we discriminating against people that have tattoos? Because I know, you have tattoos that, if you have visible tattoos now, I mean, back in the day when I was a kid growing up, man, you saw probably, 5 out of 6 cops, had USMC on their forearm or U.S. Navy or something like that. So why wouldn't somebody be able to put a, like a jaw patch on the side of their face, cover that up?
Why wouldn't they? I don't know. I think those tattoos on the arms of service members is different.
Yeah, but they still have to cover it up these days.
Yeah.
They still have to.
Well, I don't know. I just think it's perceived differently.
Now, I was discriminated against Gerlt when I was in college. And I was thinking that, my class and my dual Spanish class could file class action because, all of the Spanish kids that were in the class, this was like one of those, you do 2 semesters in 1 semester, no English is spoken in the class. And all of these people that have Spanish spoken in the home as first language are wrecking the grading curve for us. Lubbock's First News in conversation with Jim Gerlt. Okay, anything that we missed about city council meeting last night that I know that it was probably
short and sweet.
One of the shortest, if not the shortest on record.
Probably so.
Do we have a city statistician?
Statistician
that keeps track of all this, like the stats on city council meetings? Like
it's not a play-by-play.
How many times people say point of order?
Probably somebody in the audience knows.
I hope we're not paying somebody to know that. Tom.
Takes all kinds.
No, it's just that we got all kinds.
Yeah. So anyway, anything that you want to add about city council meeting? Got about a minute or so.
No, just the fact, well, I think it was artificially short last night, just knowing that we've got the budget coming up. Nothing really controversial was last night. So every once in a while you get those where you have a short one. And then it'll come in, we'll have a bunch of annexation requests, a bunch of zoning requests, a bunch of public hearings. So we will make up for that at some point in the future. We will have a 4-hour council meeting. Budget time is always a crunch time because our staff has been working night and day to get it ready. And now we've got to work night and day to try and absorb it and come up with a budget by the end of September.
Because they actually read the bill.
Really?
Well, we got to pass it to know what's in it.
You know how to read? Oh, good for you.